Let me just look.
What is that? Does that mean I'm in now?
You're in.
I wasn't in before.
Hey,
Unbelievable. He's censoring me, people. He's bloody censoring me.
What do you think of my setup?
I like the setup. You did last time. Didn't you have some fancy things you could make it clap and...
You mean like this?
That's
hold on, wait,
cool.
1 second.
That's not the right one.
Sec.
I need that one more. I want that one.
Tell us a joke.
Okay. Oh God, I've never forgotten every joke in my life. Okay, I do have one. I don't know if I can tell that one.
Okay, do it like a clean one that's like not...
Yeah, I know. This is what's really tricky now. That one also is controversial. Okay. I don't know that I know any.
If you think of a joke, let me know. I'll be ready.
Right,
I'll be ready to push that button.
I really crumbled there. I'll tell a joke. No, wait. I tell
but in fairness, who tells jokes these days?
Yeah, I'm more of a reactive joker. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't set them up. I don't like the setup jokes.
Yeah.
Observational comedy. What can I tell you?
But you know when someone's going to tell you a joke and they're like, I used to have this mate and he'd be like, and he'd always do this. He'd go, oh, careful, let me tell you this story. Oh God. Oh. And I'm like, oh, here we go. And it would last for like 5 minutes. And it's like, a joke should never be longer than, well, we should, if it is long, the person telling it shouldn't be laughing while they're telling it.
Yeah.
Because then you're like,
yeah,
it's
get to it. Get to it. Weirdly, I see a lot of comedians, when they tell jokes, they're very funny. And when they laugh at a joke, I don't find that one funny. Like Dave Chappelle, sometimes he tells loads of really good jokes and there'll be one he can't get to the end of and he'll do the punchline. I'm like, you find that funny? Like I find...
Also, I've noticed comedians don't really laugh at other people's jokes. Maybe because they're comedians for a living. Like I did a TEFL course when you go and learn how to teach English, and I remember one of the guys on it was a professional comedian that toured with Eddie Izzard. You know, he was a big guy. I won't say his name, but I remember anyone else would be funny in the room, he'd never laugh. Probably because it's a bit like maybe the fact that as a comedian he had to struggle to be funny, and it's his profession. His job is to make people laugh, and therefore if someone else is possibly funnier than you, I'm not saying it was me, but and other people are laughing, you might think this is a skill, you know.
But is that like going to someone else's yoga class as a teacher and refusing to practice? I'm not doing it.
Yeah, breathe in. I'm not going to breathe in.
No, tell me what to do. I'll do what I want. I'll breathe out. I'm going to hold my breath the whole class, the whole hour. See how you like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the same as that, or maybe they're just trying to internalize and go, why did people laugh at that? You know. Like
yeah, maybe they were analyzing.
Comedians are quite analytical like that. Like they come across as quite, it's an act, right? They come across as quite relaxed and casual when they're telling their jokes. But that's a rehearsed script that they've worked at for, months, maybe a year. So maybe that's part of it. Like when they hear a joke, they're like, okay, could I make more out of that? Because observational comedy now is like the go-to, right? It used to be telling jokes. Now it's not telling jokes, it's observational stuff. How can you make a story funny and relatable, I guess. I don't know who the kind of godfather of that was. I'm sure there was a change somewhere where jokes were, the comedians were tell joke, and then someone was like, oh, I'll try this style, and everyone was like, oh, that's crazy, they'll never work. And now it's the oni. It's the oni type, right? Except you have some one-liner guys, which I really like.
Yeah.
What's his name? Milton... I forget the guy's name, Milton something. Very unusual looking guy, always wears a Hawaiian shirt, crazy hair, kind of got this dumbfounded look on his face, like he's a deer caught in the headlights. And he does a whole show of one-liners.
Just like Roddy Dangerfield style, probably.
Yeah, great stuff. Like, I mean, now that I said, probably doesn't sound that funny, but I remember hearing it goes, I went on a trip of a... Oh, God damn it. Come on, dog. Don't go to the button straight away. I wasn't... No, I'm not telling it now. Okay, let me start again.
Catch you by surprise.
All right. I went on a once-in-a-lifetime trip this year. No, I can't remember, actually. I can't remember the exact
I wish I had
one.
a crickets button as well. The crickets, like...
Oh, my God. And the tumbleweed. Yeah, if you could put that in here on the visual.
So I could... Because each one of these does a certain noise. There probably is a tumbleweed one. I just need to find it. But
I've got it. The thing is, people keep telling me I'm lazy and apathetic. And I tell you what, I've had it up to here with them. Yes! Yeah, where's the button? Hit the button.
One sec.
Thank you. I don't know if it played for the camera. Yeah, okay, it did. Yeah.
That was good.
Right?
Because
Okay.
it's so subtle.
Yeah, it takes a moment. You're like,
Yeah.
yeah. There's a gift. There's a gift at the end of that. You pay attention.
That's really good. And it was short, sharp, and to the point.
God damn it, so much pressure.
Yeah,
God,
it's so, mate.
new respect for those guys.
You know, I was doing a class online this morning, and during the class there was a long period of balancing on one leg. I mean, it was about a minute on one leg and doing different things on one leg. And during that online class, the teacher was trying to be funny, and I said, I'm not going to do. And actually, I turned that class off and went to another teacher when I kind of tried and trusted, because I was just like, it kind of frustrated me, you know. I think like being not necessarily being funny, but having a sense of humor in class is important. But trying to be funny can be irritating, and
so
also
many things.
it has to be timely as well, doesn't it? Like if you're doing it when people are trying to relax, it's not or balance on one leg.
It's tricky, right? There's like certain things you can say in a class, like because you don't know, because you're the one projecting out. So you've got to have your feedback loop pretty good. You know, you've got to be looking at people going like, I don't know if this will land. And like, you've also got to be a little bit fearless and go like, I'll try it out. And then you can make a joke out of it if it doesn't work at all. But I know what you mean. I've been to a class where the person's too casual and too jokey the whole way. I'm like, yeah, I get you trying to be cool, but I also paid for this class. So like, I need you to actually pay attention. And it's kind of funny that you forgot the one side the one time, but now it's not that funny. So there's somewhere between that, like the joke should be sprinkled in, I guess, if anything, but they shouldn't be the crux, unless that's your thing, unless you're an amazing comedian that can do a whole class, a routine like that.
I think because it messes with the pace in the class. Like I just joined this yoga studio close by my house. I'm going there because I'm not a teacher there, and I want to. I get a bit self-conscious being, being a teacher
For sure.
Yeah, and practicing in the studio.
And then did you find like then in a class where I want to push my limits and go like, I don't know if I can do this move. Let me try, but I might fall out. I used to be like, or if I don't know anyone here, yeah, I'll go for it. And then when you're a teacher, you're like, oh God, what does that mean if I fell out? What am I going to lose students? Like it's a weird thing goes on in your brain, on my brain.
Yeah, it does. And also, I mean, it is nice to have the community and see people that you know, but at the same time, I kind of want to switch off, and that's why I chose the studio. But in this studio, one of the classes, I forget what it's called on the timetable, but essentially it was an absolute yoga. Do you know what that is?
This is mad. So I didn't until yesterday.
You didn't know absolute?
Yeah, and then I did one yesterday.
Oh, right, okay.
But I kept thinking...
this job of doing like two on each side.
Yeah, but you know what that is? That's
Bikram.
Yeah.
Bikram, yeah.
They've just been like, right, we've got some bit of bad flack because he's been a bit touchy, so can we change the name? That's why I was like, what do you mean? I was like, oh, you mean Bikram?
It's Bikram, yeah. It is, but during it, I was like, oh, this is Bikram, and I was a bit resistant, like, oh, I don't want to do Bikram yoga. But then as the class went on, I thought, well, actually, I know it's not going to be very, very technical, and it's not going to be very nuanced, and therefore, I know what's coming, so I can kind of enjoy it a little bit more. I can focus on the breathing, whereas when you are doing a class where, let's say the one this morning I was doing online, it was way too technical. Everything was something new, that's something nuanced, and I was like, I can't get into this. And it made me realize, I think that's why it's so powerful to be, not only do your own home practice, but be a student, whether it's online or in real life, and you start to realize, oh, right, pacing is so important. And I think that's probably why things like Ashtanga, Bikram, or these set sequences are so popular, because you know what pace you're going at all the time, and you can focus on your breath, as opposed to when you have to stop and the teacher's like, right, let me just break this down again. Now I start thinking, well, I'm hungry, I'm a bit tired today actually, or what's that person doing over there? You lose it, don't you?
I totally agree. I think the thing is, Kev, you're quite unusual in terms of, I know you like new things. So if you're someone who's saying that was too technical for you, the average Joe is going to be like, fuck this. This is like, most people can only, I think, handle one or two new pieces of information in a class anyway. Or not that they can handle, but that they would like. A lot of people come to a class because they want to flow. They want to move through their body. They want you to put together a sequence that is interesting, but not complicated. That it's basic if they just listen to the words and things move into each other and they transition really well. Weirdly, like when you watch really good videos on YouTube, whether they're holiday videos or if it's a movie, what makes something good is the transitions work well. One shot leads into another one really well, maybe in an interesting way, but you're like, wow, I didn't expect that, but it works. It doesn't jar my eyes, you know? So there's certain moves that work well, one after the other. Whereas there's other ones that don't.
No,
you know? And if you have to stop to go, oh, the reason you can't do it is because of this. I think there's a clever way in which you teach it, where you teach the most basic version of it first, the next time around. That, like, I'm a big fan of that, where I have 3 sequences, 3 flows per se. One is a very basic one. The next one's a little bit harder. The next one's more advanced. And the whole way through, you give people options. If you can't do this, go back to the one you did before. So you make sure that first one is something everyone can do. And then you build it up. And then people, the last or fourth one is you get to choose.
Yeah. That's so good. I think that is so important that we, and you mentioned downstairs about Jason Crandall and also, I just said Crandall.
Yeah, I like that. It was,
why did I say that?
I don't know.
Crandall.
Yeah,
some people say Crandall.
Sure.
Jason Crandall.
Makes it sound French.
Adam Husler, a way of doing it where, or technique of, there's a theme that you set at the start and you do it quite basic and it's quite technical and we give like 10 minutes of being quite technical and that's the basic theme. And then all the poses practice that theme, but in different ways, and it gradually gets more and more challenging.
Yeah.
And I think that it's so good to have that structure. Like I don't plan my classes. I don't write my classes at all, but I visualized in my head over and over again. I practice things over and over again. I'm like, will this work? Will it not work? As opposed to writing it down. Because I used to write it down at the start and then I'd never look at the notes or I'd get flustered and forget where I am on the notes.
I mean, I'm looking at, I actually had it yesterday where before the workshop started, I was reading something that said, choose a number. And I was like, what the hell does that mean? Like, am I doing magic tricks? I can't. And it was written and it had a star next to it. I was like, at some point when I was planning this, that was not only something to remember, but something to really remember, you know?
It got a star.
Yeah, and I was like, God, that is, because that is, NB, of which I forget what the Latin is, but it's like, take note of this. And it was only once I finished the class, I was like, oh yeah. Like with inversions, I was like, choose a number of how many you do when you're doing your practice, because it can get quite addictive. So you can do like 40 handstands and your wrists are, especially when you start, are buggered. So I was like, choose a number, decide, I'm going to do 10 today. I try 10, then put it to bed. But I'd already said that in the class, which to your point about writing things down and not knowing where you are on the page, because also like things come up and I move things and there's arrows coming down here. It looks like the workings of a madman. You know, I don't know if you ever seen A Beautiful Mind with John Nash, where they go into a shed and there's just string going across everywhere. You're like, what does it all mean? The Illuminati and pyramids and Mesopotamia and George Trump. Like, what is going on here? That's what it looks like. So it's of no use. I think the act of doing it, though, of writing it out, just helps you. For me, it helped formulate it in my brain to go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Cool. But I'm the same as you. I have to actually get on the floor and go like, okay, does that work though? And more importantly, what if someone can't do that? Because that's the big thing, is that the more advanced you get at practicing, you're like, yeah, going from side plank to step to the front of your mat without putting your other hand down, easy. What about 80% of people that can't do that? And you can't look at them and go, well, keep practicing. You have to give them that bridge. That's what, as a teacher, you're doing. You know, Patrick Beach makes the demarcation all the time. Are you showing or are you teaching? And there's a big difference. Like you can lead a class and you can say, okay, I'll be at the front here, guys. You do what I do. And that's something. There's a lot to be said for that. But teaching is going, you know what you're doing wrong. This is how you could do it. Think about this, and this may help. That's teaching. You've taken something and kind of like in a laboratory, you've dissected it, looked at the moving parts and gone, oh, if that's out, then this will happen. You've done the maths and you've gone, okay, this is how I could help someone get this. Because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to show someone, here's the move, here's what whether it's the intention or the shape or the stretch. You're going, that's what we're trying to achieve. Here's the road I suggest going. But some people may have to go another way, and you have to have all the different routes and go, yeah, you can go this way, you can do that one. And you have to experiment. And it means not necessarily just practicing the way that you can in your body, but imagining how someone else might not be able to do it, whether it's strength or flexibility. And that's what's tricky, because for the longest time in your practice, you're just trying to find the best way for you to do it, to get to that point. And then as a teacher, you're not just thinking about how do I get to that point. You're thinking, what would some of the other ways be? And that's what, for me, YouTube is incredible. Like, I'm forever looking up different tutorials of how to learn Warrior 1. And like looking at the themes and going, okay. And then trying it out and going, is that correct? And then going through more and more and more. Because there's a plethora of information out there. And then finding something interesting, going, okay, I wouldn't do it like that, but that's interesting. It just gives you more in your arsenal when you're teaching to go, try this, no, try that, try this. And that's a teacher, not someone who's just showing.
Yeah. And also, to not, this is advice for people that's just starting out. Sometimes you try to get too fancy. You try to get all these, and it turns into a dance class where you could teach like a crescent lunge in so many different ways, for example. But it's having the patience to explain something that's nuanced and then letting it sit with people for 10 seconds, 15 seconds until they can figure out themselves. And maybe they won't figure it out then, but they'll hear the words, because we all have different phases of learning. You know, we'll hear the words, we see it maybe, and then we see someone else doing it. And then the next week we try it again, we realize something else, and you keep coming. But it's having that, it's being comfortable in that moment where there's the process of understanding, as opposed to just do this, or you know, making a class fancy because you want to feel like you're giving something that you didn't do last week. Whereas instead, it's getting overcomplicated.
Yeah. I mean, for the longest time, I used to think that every class I taught had to be fairly original to the one I taught the week before. And Patrick spoke about that when we were with him, you know, about like you fall into that trap going like every class has got to be totally different. And it's an insecurity certainly for me to go like, well, I want to show you how much I know, instead of going, how much are they ready to learn, you know, and making it complicated isn't necessarily better, because people are like, I don't know what this is. And to your point, why people like Bikram Ashtanga, they know what they're getting. Once they learn the sequence, now they can start thinking, okay, how could I make this more intense? How could I get better? How can I be more mindful in this position? Because I know what's coming. I don't have to think, oh, what's the person at the front doing? Secondly, when you're saying letting it sit with people, it always reminds me of when you teach a kid how to swim. The way you definitely don't teach a kid how to swim is to hold them the whole time and let them paddle. At some point, you've got to let go for a second and then catch them. Let them go and let them find their own feet. But you have to be brave enough to do it, and you have to allow them to find out themselves how to do it. And I think that's what's happening with yoga. Same thing, like, I know exactly what you're saying. You hear the same cues all the time, and maybe it won't get into your brain. And then 6 months down the line, you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think is teaching people systems instead of just necessarily a move. You teach them a system. We do this because this is what we're trying to stabilize in this position, and doing this action helps you stabilize. And the body is a system, so those rules can start to apply. Like when you learn language, you don't learn language by learning each individual word. That's not how you put it together. You try things out. You learn that, okay, the verb tends to go here. When it's plural, I tend to add an S. And you use those parameters for the longest time until they don't work. And then you adjust. And then you use more parameters. And the better you get at language, the more you know these different systems. You don't know all the words in the language, but you know, okay, I know a word that is similar to this. And when I make that a plural, that one actually gets an apostrophe S.
Yeah, and then once you have that approach, then it's about immersing yourself. You know, if you go to live in Paris, you'll learn French a lot quicker than if you did a course here in Dublin. And that's what I see with yoga, is that someone asked me yesterday, it was actually Pat DeVilly I was telling you about earlier, but he asked me when I started doing yoga. And I said I started when I was 30. I started doing yoga when I was 30, which was 8 years ago. But really, I only consistently started 4 years ago. I mean, like it became a lifestyle. And the difference is night and day.
It's so funny. Before you started the rest of that sentence, I didn't know where you're going, but I was just thinking I must say to him that when you said immerse yourself, it's totally right. Again, it's spending time with the data, right? When you're on the mat and you're going through that pose, the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time, maybe nothing's changed. Maybe the 10th time you go, oh, that's interesting. If I do this, oh, that changes it completely. Then 11th, 12th, 13th, all the way to the 100th, no change. The 100th time you're like, oh, that's interesting. This happens. And it's the same thing. The more time you spend on your mat doing the practice, the more information you have to give to other people. You start to know how things feel, how things change. And I think it's about being explorative on the mat too, not doing just the same thing every time. Trying out different ways, trying out different teachers and learning, okay, why didn't that resonate? Why was that hard to understand? What are the themes I'm seeing with teachers that I really like? And what are the themes of teachers maybe that I don't get on with? What are those themes? And can I package them together? And this kind of happens quite naturally the more you do it. But I agree with you. Same with me. Only this year really have I started doing a daily practice. And the change is incredible. You kind of know what you're talking about. You become an expert in that field because you're putting in the time with the data.
Yeah. And also, and as well, establishing what your why is. My why I started yoga when I was 30 was basically to stretch my hamstrings so I could play football for longer. That was it. I was like, I want to be able to touch my toes. And then when I couldn't, or when I was very unable, I felt like, well, this isn't working. I'd ignore it for a few months, come back to it again. And my why was in the wrong place. Whereas 4 years ago, when I got made redundant from my job, I was doing it for more of a lifestyle, as in I wanted to feel better about myself. And it was more, I liked the people that I met in yoga as well. I thought there's a lot of weirdos here. I like these, I'm not really like a gym guy, how many macros you have to do and what you're washing your protein shake. Like I wasn't like that because I'm just not the way I'm made up. And fair play to people that are into the gym stuff and bodybuilding. That's great. But for me, it was a bit shallow. I realized that I couldn't look like that. And I was just more interested in feeling better, just feeling, and I think as well with the football thing, it's kind of a microcosm of life. When I thought about giving up football, then I thought, if I have to stop playing football, it means I'm old now. It means I've moved to the next stage of life where I'm one of those lads you see who can't even kick a ball. He's just become, and that part of my life is gone. Whereas now what I realise is, I just want to feel better, and also to actually feel your body. I mean, to wake up in the morning and you feel like, oh, I can feel a bit of opening or strengthening or whatever it is, and it becomes then just a thing. It's like non-negotiable. So now in the mornings, Doug, this is my new routine. I haven't told you this, but I wake up, I run, come home, have a cold bath, I meditate, and then I do yoga. So that's my routine. And now it's only been a week. So it's a new routine.
I'd say my new routine starts tomorrow.
but it's every single day, and then it just becomes something you just do, as opposed to having to think about it. Because I think, do you run?
No.
Now, this is a good point, actually.
There we go. There we go.
No, I just want to say, what I've realised from the running is it's given me more empathy towards people that are starting yoga. Because now you could say I'm comfortable on a yoga mat, relatively speaking, because I've done a lot of the movements thousands of times. I'm not a runner. I haven't run since I played football, and that's like short sprints. So now for me to go out every morning and start jogging, someone who's a proper runner would laugh at me because I run for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. That's it. Maybe it's a mile. I'm not sure. But I realised, God, you get good at what you practice. And it's made me empathise to think like it's the beginner's mindset, as it were. Why don't you run, Doug?
Well, for the longest time, they told me with my knee not to run. They then went back and they said actually doing a bit of running is good, but long distance stuff is not. Like I got no cartilage in my left knee. I got a plate in my left knee. Like I can't. There's no cushion. So weirdly, he said a bit of running is good. Lots of weight training is much better because it separates the joint a little bit, gives it a little more room. And then a little bit of running, he said, is good because it generates the synovial fluid in the joint, in the capsule. So I don't know. I could maybe introduce it. Like we do it in CrossFit a bit, but the most we'll do is like a 1K run. That's the most we'll do.
I think what I like about it is because I do it with Rach. We run together and we do it at a pace that we can talk. So it's quite nice. We get to talk in the morning and without.
Good way to get moving though.
Good way to get moving, and also breathing. It's actually really any kind of repetitive motion like running, swimming, sun salutations is very meditative. You know, you're breathing with it, as opposed to always trying to push, which is good sometimes. But I actually think swimming is fantastic because
See, I used to love swimming. Right, like that's my background.
Weren't you a great swimmer?
I wasn't a great swimmer. I was an international water polo player.
Oh, no big deal.
So, yeah, but I wasn't a great swimmer. I was good at a lot of other things.
But don't you have to swim short bursts in that?
You have to swim really fast. But in terms of, I was up against like lots of amazing swimmers. So I guess like on average, I'm a much better swimmer than most. But in that realm, that wasn't my forte. You know, guys could pace me. But there's lots of little tricks you have instead. It's like judo in the water. Like you're holding on to wrists all the time, getting wrist control. And then you put like both feet on a guy's chest and kick him like when you change direction.
Wow.
Yeah, it's brutal. And then you also have a foot on the hip because the hips are so important in swimming and in water polo. If you can disrupt someone's hips, they can't swim properly. So if you're swimming behind them, for instance, and he's like just ahead of me to my right, I can use my crawl elbow to push his hip down and it'll drop his hips and it acts like brakes. And then I can also I can grab a shoulder, which is illegal.
I didn't know any of that.
Oh man, it's
because
brutal.
You can't because it's all underwater, you can't see it.
Yeah, so the refs have to really be, in the Olympics, they'll have a camera underwater. Have a look at that. It's mad. Like costumes are getting pulled because you're trying to gain control to get a guy behind you or in front of you, wherever you want him. And the same with pulling costumes back to go forward. But you've got to disguise it with your movements.
Is it like lacrosse but in the water?
Well, you don't have a paddle or anything. You've got your hand. It's more like basketball in the water. You set up D around the goal, and then the guy in the middle, the center forward, which is the same as basketball, is called a hole. So you have a center forward and the center back. I was center back, so I'm defense on that guy. So you have to try stop him getting the ball. The whole setup at the premise is that you're trying to get a foul off the middle to play it back out for someone to shoot. But that center point, the hole, is like ferocious. So you're just wrestling each other. He's trying to get ahead of you. You're trying to get ahead of him to stop that ball coming in because that's the center of all of their attack. They can't really attack without someone there. So, but it's hot. Like you're treading water, you're fighting in the water, you're swimming hard. Like your gas tank,
mate, that must be
is
tough
amazing.
Physically. Yeah,
absolutely amazing. My only thing is the amount of chlorine you guys put in your pools. I'm not sure about Ireland.
What do you mean you?
But the UK, I can't hack it. It destroys my skin. Like I've got eczema already. Yeah. It destroys my skin. Like I smell chlorine for days afterwards. So I can't swim here. It really messes me up.
Where's your eczema?
Like mainly on my face now. It used to be, like I had it on my hands really bad when I was a kid. Like until they were red raw, like to the flesh. Because you can't help when you're a kid. Like good luck telling a kid not to scratch. Like you pick the skin off. Then it changed from there to my elbows. That's a popular place, and then behind the knees, and now it's on my face. Like I can normally tell here underneath this left eye, you'll see like a bit of redness. And then here, but actually at the moment it's normally related to my diet now.
What creates like as you call it flare-ups?
Yeah, the flare-ups. Your skin gets really dry. In winter it gets worse. The heat situation. Like I was on the Lewis today for the first time ever, which is very exciting. But I was like, it's just the difference between outside and inside is too much. So like,
the heat.
Yeah, different. Because you got your jacket on and jacket off and jacket like. But what sets it off, I don't entirely know. I know that when my eating is bad, it's either lots of sugars, because I noticed it used to happen after my cheat days. It would be really bad. Sugars does it, heat does it, but sun stops it, which is a weird thing. Like, so if you get really hot, if I go to hot yoga, like it flares up quite a lot and it'll calm down. And that's it. I thought it was coffee for the longest time. I took coffee out the diet. Thank God it wasn't that. I was so happy about that. But I don't know. Some people might have some other ideas. Dairy is often cited.
Dairy, yeah, I've heard that.
But then I don't have almost any dairy, and it still is there. But then if I go to a hot country, I go to Bali, it kind of goes away. But then the last time I went, actually, it was bad. After I fly, it's really bad. Any stress, if I remember correctly, stress definitely kicks it off. That whole thing online before, big flare up. So stress, whether it's on your body, like a hard workout, or whether it's you're not sleeping well, that kicks it up. But interesting enough, Jordan Peterson, this is part of the same family of diseases. I say diseases, it makes it sound a lot worse than it is, but of conditions. Let's say conditions. Is autoimmune. Like these psoriasis is kind of what this has developed into now. So it used to be eczema, now it's psoriasis, which my brother has too. Smoking, by the way, if you have psoriasis, don't bother changing your diet. If you're going to carry on smoking, don't bother. Because the smoking, whatever you do, will undo it. Like I've seen it with my brother, and I've seen it with the data online, same thing. If you carry on smoking, it doesn't matter how much dairy you take out, it doesn't matter how clean your diet, the smoking will bring your eczema out. You know, it's funny, a friend of mine has a shisha company, and whenever he's new flavors, he's like, you got to try these out. And I thought, how shisha must be better than normal smoking. God, my throat by the next morning and my eczema by the next morning, much worse.
Really?
Yeah. So he's on that carnivore diet, which I don't know if you heard the Rhonda Patrick podcast with Joe Rogan, the latest one. Amazing.
When was the latest one? How long ago was that?
Probably about 2 weeks ago. I was actually looking for an old one of hers, and I put it on. I didn't realize she'd been on recently.
No,
she started talking. Yeah, mate, you want to get onto that one.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, listeners at home, listen to this. Do all of his podcasts first, then go across to JRE. All right, not the other way around.
Makes
all right,
sense.
There you go. Yeah, it makes sense. All right, do the right thing. But she spoke about the carnivore diet, and she was saying, I can understand how it would work. There's certain vegetables, and I was talking to a friend of mine just this week whose sister has, he's going to kill me. Calvin, sorry, man.
Is it an
lupus? Sister's got lupus.
Never heard of it.
Lupus is a serious autoimmune, like your red blood cells just crumple. And like, you know, I'm pretty sure the girl from TLC had it.
Left eye?
No.
Chili?
T. Who's T?
Tara?
No. T-Bones or something like that.
T-Bone. Shout out
but
T-Bone.
she had it, and she would be some days she couldn't sing at all. Like, you just have to stay in bed all day. And nightshade vegetables, which I forget which they are, can cause it. So a lot of carnivore diets have become popular now, with just red meat and water, a little bit of salt.
Yeah.
And she was saying, Dr. Rhonda Patrick was saying, you can achieve a lot of the same results by fasting, mimicking diets. But she said, the amazing thing, which I want to try this week actually, and I've managed to rope in 2 of my friends, is to get 2.5 days or up to 3 days fasting, no food. I know, Kev. So I might do this from Tuesday.
I'm hungry just thinking about it.
You know, I've been practicing this week, going like, how long could I go without? I've got to about 4 hours where I'm like, right, I might be at the edge. So, but she was saying what happens here is that you rid your body of all of these cells that aren't quite working properly because your body goes into like survival mode. And she said for autoimmune diseases, it's a good thing to try. So, you know, I'm butchering all the data, but
so is she saying then that you don't need to do the carnivore diet, but you need to fast?
She's saying, look, instead of going something as extreme as the carnivore diet, you could probably get a lot of the same things by fasting. So why not fast first, see if it works, rather than go so extreme? I mean, people love jumping on a trend, right? Like, I just want to eat meat all the time. Vegetables are terrible for you. It's always on and off, right? It's always like, that's good, that's bad. It's not like, oh, well, maybe the two together can be fine, you know? So she was just saying it's a good idea to try fasting first because that can help. It's shown to do a lot of the same stuff. So...
Yeah, a good friend of mine, he's probably watching this now, shout out to Brian, he lives in the States, but he does the same thing, had really strong eczema, and like really, really heavy eczema on him that he struggled with. And I think he went the carnivore diet might be for that or for other reasons, but his skin is perfect now. Cleared up. And the only thing is, like, I think we don't know the long-term effects of
longevity, right?
Yeah, of eating just meat, and it's like diet is obviously very individual, but I do think fasting is so important. Me and Rach, we're like, right, every Wednesday we're not going to eat for the whole day. We did it once, And I was just like, I can't do this. I can't, because I can't think. And it's just, and I'm not proud to say that. I just didn't have the discipline to do it. So what I do now is I wake up like 5 a.m. and I won't eat till lunch. You know, so
Still,
so I'm basically fasting for half the day.
you should maybe look into this fasting mimicking diet. So Rhonda Patrick describes a way in which you can fast kind of like that, which will mimic the acts of fasting. It's not the same thing, but it'll start to give some of the same results. So maybe look at that. It's intermittent fasting, effectively.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. Yeah, and I think because if you think about, you know, my father or my parents and their generation before that, they had periods of their lives where they had no food, and they just had. I remember my dad. I've told the story before on the podcast, but it was ages ago. My dad telling me that when he first moved to Dublin, he was 15 or 16, and he didn't have any money to eat, and he had a cup of tea after like a while of not eating, and he had to sit down because he got a light head. You know, it was just like, because he was so hungry. Yeah. And I thought, wow, you know, nowadays every disease we have now, as Naval says, is for abundance. We have too much of everything. But fasting, the thing about fasting is you actually forget how much your life revolves around food.
And how much of it is a pastime.
Exactly.
Like, it's something to do.
Let's go for brunch.
Yeah.
And then if you choose a carnivore diet, or me and Rachel on a specific diet now for January, and it means I can't go and meet people for food. I mean, I met Pat DeVille yesterday, and we had I had burrito, and I'm not supposed to have rice, so I had rice yesterday. Just
We're going to talk rice.
Just keep it between ourselves.
Yeah. You guys at home too, right?
So, but I felt shit afterwards. I felt so crap, and after I had the rice, I was craving chocolate so badly, and for the first time in a week, it feels like it's been longer, but I was really craving chocolate because rice is a simple carb, or is it a complex carb?
No, it's simple. White rice.
White rice. It was rice, yeah. I had that, and then it spikes your blood sugar level, which then drops down quite quickly afterwards, and then you want that sugar level up again. Whereas now we've been eating, the only carb we have is quinoa, and mate, I don't get like hunger pangs at all. I mean, again, it's only been a week, but yeah, I think because during Christmas time, I want to ask you about Christmas actually, but during my Christmas, I went off the bandwagon a little bit. I feel like I was getting gout, like Henry VIII, because my fingers and toes were hurting me, and I was like, I think my nose is going to turn into a mushroom and just going to end up.
Oh, that's awful look, isn't it?
Mate.
Do you ever look at old people and go like, I almost want to stop them and go, what did you do?
Wait, mate.
Like, what did you do that's caused all of this? Because I don't want to do it. But it's a really hard question to ask someone. Well, same with the hunch stuff. I'm like, I want to grab them and go, stand up. And I know that they can't. I'm like, God.
Some woman in Zimmer frame, like, she doesn't need that Zimmer. Yeah. She's healed.
The power of yoga compelled you.
Exactly. Yeah. Oops. But no, like, mate, have you seen, I seen a picture of Wim Hof yesterday when he was younger. He was a handsome guy. I mean, he's good looking now for his age.
A very distinct look, very intense.
Nordic.
Yeah.
He's a good, but I mean, you forget, how old is Wim Hof now?
60s?
Yeah, so he looks good actually. It's great for his age. But yeah, the nose thing happens because our ears and nose don't stop growing because it's cartilage.
Not great news for me. Not great news. Ears-wise.
Your head's already quite small, so it's going to...
Yes! My fucking head could grow a bit more, which would be great. Tiny head problem.
In fact, I was chatting to... this is the third time I'm going to mention Pat DeVille. Sorry. I want a bit of a man crush.
Yeah.
Can I quickly talk about Pat DeVille?
Pat DeVille, I've never heard of him. Go ahead, mate.
Don't be jealous. No, I'm joking. No, but Pat was saying that he went to a Wim Hof weekend. He went into Poland, did the whole thing. Have you ever done that before?
Not his thing. I mean, I actually only have done... My friends had loved it for a while. We were just following it online. But I've never done a course of his. Have you ever done
been to one of his instructors?
No.
Okay, I did that before. Went to one of the instructors here in Dublin. And actually, I want to switch gear a little bit because speaking about Pat, have you got any mentors?
Mate, like the beginning of that sentence, I thought you were going to say, do you have any mental illnesses? Shit, the jig is up. The jig is up. Do I have any mentors?
Yeah.
I'm going to say no because I don't know what you mean.
Okay. Have you got someone, or have you had someone in the past that you go to regularly for advice?
indirectly, Jordan Peterson. I can't tell. I would conservative guess. I probably watched maybe 200 hours of him. Conservative. So, like, I take a lot of what he says on board, but no, I don't have someone. It's not direct mentoring, I guess, because it's not answering a question per se that I had directly. But I just take a lot of what he says on board.
And I think that's actually quite common, that indirect or that one-way mentorship, because say with Pat, for example, he was a massive. I didn't say it to him yesterday because when you meet someone that you admire, you don't want to tell them that you admire them.
You don't want to make it weird.
It gets
I
weird.
I appreciate you not saying that to me.
So
I get it. I get it. I saw it in your notes. Your name and my name and a heart with the arrows forever with the 4.
Yeah. When I was made redundant from my job, I was thinking about working for myself in some capacity. It's something to do with health, right? I came home and my mum and sister were at home, and I said, I was teaching my sister how to do plank, right? And my sister goes, you could do this for a living, you know. I said, what? She's like, personal training, yoga, that type of thing where you're training people. And I said, no, I don't think so. It's not. I'm skinny. I'm not a buff guy, and I would say as well, it's not a very good job. You can't really make a living from working in a gym. That's what I was thinking in my head. I didn't really know yoga teaching was a job, but anyway. And then my mum says there was this fella on TV, on the Late Late Show. Now, the Late Late Show in Ireland is not watched too much by the younger generation, but it's more so watched by our parents' generation. And his name was Pat something and the other. My sister said, "Oh yeah, we watched that together, didn't we, Mum? This guy." I said, "What's the story?" And then I watched it, and essentially his story is that when he was in his late teens, he tried to become an MMA fighter. Just what he trained to be, right? It didn't work out. Then he came home and he said to his parents, right, I'm going to start a boot camp and I'm going to do it on the beach. He got all the equipment, he put all the posters up and he said, this is it now, this is my thing, I'm going to be a boot camp trainer. Got there, no one turned up, or like one person turned up 6 a.m, west of Ireland, dark mornings, cold, rainy like today. So he went back to his parents, like embarrassed, saying like, this is not for me, this is not going to work out, I'm completely lost. And he was saying how then he was had to move back in with his parents and to save money, and he didn't know what he was going to do. And since then, he opened a gym in Galway, or in the west of Ireland anyway. And it came up to about 800 members. Then he gave the gym to his friend. I don't know if I should say that, but I'm sure it's okay. Gave the gym to his friend. And he now goes all around the world as a speaker. And Pat is he's actually an introvert. He's quite shy naturally, but he's trained himself, a bit like Jerry Duffy, to be more engaging, to be which I really respect. But now, Doug, he's a jiu-jitsu blue belt, he's a mountaineer, he's just finished his yoga teacher training, and he goes all around the world teaching, like just speaking about essentially a bit like the Irish Tony Robbins. And I mean, when I was walking around my estate here where I live now,
I remember you saying that story. I like that story.
Yeah, knocking on doors saying, "Hey, I'm a yoga teacher. I do fitness as well, and I have a thing." And I was thinking of Pat Davilli. I was like, when he was out on the beach, and no one showed up, and yet he kept going, and that was always in my head. I was like, that was inspiration for me, even though he didn't know it. And then now, not only has he gone from that the fitness side of things, but now he's a speaker and he gets paid to speak. And I think, wow, I would love to not move away, but put more effort into how can I work with people where it's not just about the physical body. How can I because Jordan Peterson or Joe Rogan or Brené Brown, people like that have really helped me, same way as you, to just think better about myself, to think like more positive, and to talk in a way that maybe we're not used to hearing. Like, you can do it. Every day is a new day.
And also, I think the other thing is he's quite stern with what he's saying.
Jordan Peterson?
Yeah, in a non-threatening way. You know, I remember hearing him say something along the lines of, maybe you're the 1 in a million. You know, maybe you are that 1 in a million that things are going to be different for. More likely you're not. And these things that have worked for generation upon generation to make people happy, people smarter than you have existed and come up with the same solutions. So maybe you should take some advice from them instead of trying to make your own decision, going like, oh, I think the way the structure of the world is, you know, it's terrible and I don't want to be in a monogamous relationship and I don't want to get married and I don't want to have kids. I just want to have the most fun ever. And he was saying, maybe that'll work for you. But smarter people than you have done it and it didn't work. So maybe you should listen. And it was something like that. And it's like, it's quite cutting, but it's kind of what you need. And I think that's why he has become such a father figure for so many people, because he says the uncomfortable truths that you knew anyway. And you go, shit, yeah, I did know that. He's saying the obvious stuff, but we're in a time where no one else is saying it, where those values are crumpling around us. And he's going, maybe there's something to these old-fashioned values. And a lot of people are going, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's a bit like the biggest turning point of my life was the conversation I had with my dad. And my dad essentially fat shamed me. He said, my dad fat shamed me. He's like, you've let yourself go. You know, you've put on a lot of weight. And I was like, oh, okay. I have, haven't I? And I seen pictures of myself going, that doesn't look like me, what I think of myself as. And it was a it's not about like the size you are doesn't matter, but it was a manifestation of the life I was living. And it was only going to get worse. And that's why that tough love, that moment of that hurt me, is I can never thank him enough for that, because I realized I don't love myself. That's it, isn't it?
And I think that's relative to you. He knew what you were, kind of at base level, how you normally look, and seeing you overweight from that perspective is making him go, something's not right. Something's off kilter in your life that it's going this way. So it's not necessarily that you're overweight, but it's the fact that you weren't normally overweight, that now that you were, something's going on that's put you off course, you know?
Exactly.
And that course correction, I think, is a big thing, you know? So it's like, you know, and that's what you have to do. I guess part of yoga is being mindful to be aware of what you're doing.
Exactly.
Not to fall into patterns. So I'm always kind of ashamed of myself. I'm like, oh God, I'm 36, man. Why am I making these same mistakes? Like, at some point you've got to grow up, you know? And again, Jordan Peterson, one of his big things is the danger of man-child.
Man-child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The danger. And I always thought it was almost a feat that I've managed to put off responsibility for so long. I was like, I'm fucking nailing this. Like, you know, telling me to do nothing, you know, I can do what I want. And then you're like, those two things happen in opposition. And I'm slowly learning this, that there's freedom and there's responsibility. And there's a trade-off there. There's a sacrifice. Freedom is freedom. It's amazing. You can do whatever you want. You can get up when you want. You can do what you want. But with that becomes a lack of meaning. Responsibility means you don't always get to do what you want, but there's some meaning in your life. Simple thing like you were Alfie with the dog. It's changed your life. There's certain things you can no longer do that you would have done before Alfie, but you have a purpose, and there's something else at play here, and that's the trade-off. And I think meaning surpasses freedom as you get older. And in general, it is always better to have meaning than freedom, I think.
Oh, mate, that's such a good point. Like, when I was single and independent, as it were, I remember going out with this girl, and she said, I don't need a man, I'm an independent woman.
Was this Destiny's Child?
Sorry, I don't know why I did that. She wasn't sassy, but she's like, I don't need a man, I'm an independent woman. And I said, okay, so you don't need me. No, I don't need you, but I choose to be with you. I was like, right, okay. But it was the attitude that like, no, I want codependency. I want interdependency, I think is with the right terminology. I want someone to depend on someone, they to depend on me. That's a nice feeling. And also with Alfie, yes, he is an animal, but you know, it is nice to love something and look after something. And I'm seeing him physically grow. You feed him and you see him sleeping. Just looking at him sleeping, Doug. If I had my way, I'd love like 4 kids or something. I would really love that because, as you said, when you're single, let's say, you can sleep 8 hours a night and you can do what you want. And maybe some people are happy doing that, but purpose is so important in life. And I think like to live for someone else is very rewarding, but it's really hard to find that person.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm finding. Being single again too, I'm like, it's probably the first time in my life where I've gone like, I think maybe we mentioned this last time. Previous times in my life, I've become single. I'm like, yes, single again. Back on the town, riding solo. I got Jason Derulo playing in the background. Jason Derulo. You know, as I walk with a strut in my step, smiling at girls. Like now is the first time I'm like, oh, single again. God damn it. It's changed that because I was like, oh God, I want something different now, which is good. But like I said, I'm a little bit late to the party. I get it. A lot of people have been saying this for a long time. Like in terms of,
you're too old.
Not that I'm too old, but it's a strange. I do feel like I'm quite old to be learning that lesson. That actually, because my hard thing, I have a hard time letting people in.
Mm-hmm. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, I have a hard time, like you were saying about their interdependence. I'm scared to let people depend on me because my life has been so. What is the word? Fickle. Like I've done one job, then I've moved job, and then I've gone to stunts, and then we fly to Iceland for 3 months, and like I'm like I feel bad to let anyone depend on me because I don't want them to be hurt.
Yeah,
you know. And then you realize like that's part of it. You gotta let people in. And for the longest time, I think I've struggled, and this time alone has kind of given me that insight to go, okay, you know, you can't have it both ways. You can't invite someone in, but don't let them in the whole way.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Lessons.
It's tough to find someone because, and even the word find, you mean, if you think if you go out looking, you won't. I know we're like Rachel, and hopefully I'm only saying this, but like when I met Rachel, one of the first things she said to me was, I said, oh, what are you doing later? And she said, oh, I'm going to this course. I said, what's the course for? Well, the course is sign language course to learn how to communicate with deaf people. And I said, oh, do you have anyone in your family that's deaf? She said, no, I just think that it's important to learn how to communicate with people who can't communicate with hearing able people. And I thought, I'm in love. It's like, you are such a nice person. Yeah. That is one of the kindest things you could do, to just consider people who are hearing impaired. And I realized that when I did the whole online dating thing, and it pretty much came like a metrics. What do people look like? How tall am I? And all of this stuff. And it can work for some people, but for me, I'm looking. My main thing with a partner is that I say partner. Do you notice that, Doug? Let's say girlfriend, because I'm really 38, and I'm thinking, you know, what age do you stop saying girlfriend?
I like girlfriend.
Do you say girlfriend when you're 50?
The only thing is, partner always makes me think someone's gay.
Or business partner.
Yeah, like it's confusing. I think it actually makes it more confusing.
Maybe I'll say partner and just keep it open so they don't know who's going to turn up.
You're more than welcome to that. Yeah.
And but when I was thinking about like a partner, if someone's to ask me, I would say someone who's kind. That is like such a
yeah, it's a superpower these days. Like, because we've become very selfish. Like, we've been rewarded as a society for being selfish. What's crazy, right? I can remember about 10 years ago, I remember saying I would be looking, when I was deciding if I wanted to date this girl or not, I would check her Facebook out, and if there was a lot of selfies, I'd be like, that's a red flag, I'm out. Good luck nowadays. Good luck finding non-selfies, even on my page. You know, it's become a norm thing. Before, we were like, you had to be pretty narcissistic to do selfies, right? The metrics have changed, you know, and I agree with you. I think, you know, the personality traits, if you're thinking about long term, this is, you know, it's how myopic you are. Like, where are you looking? Short term looks are great. That'll be amazing. You'll impress your friends. You'll look great in photos together. But in terms of lifestyle, maybe not the best. Yeah. Again, long time for me to learn this.
But also, you mentioned about lifestyle. like that you have similar principles together as well. Like let's say you both really are family people, or you know what I think. Things like running together or doing yoga together, it makes a huge difference.
Just in terms of how do you spend your days. Yeah, for sure.
And then if you say, like, that's one of the great things about if you meet someone, say through yoga, is that you tend to like look after yourself. So you eat the same things, and I think that is stuff that you can't really measure on an app. You know.
Yeah, I think the technology is not quite there yet to make good matches. You know, like I said, one of my good friends' girlfriends from Tinder, and they both models, and I was like, I didn't think that this happened. Kev, I'm just aware of time. How long to get to the?
Oh, mate, it's 11:10.
Should we should
wrap
this up? Which is a shame because I'm really enjoying this. I always love this.
We meandered a little bit. Well, that's all good.
Yeah.
So yeah, Doug, any final thoughts, sir?
Any final thoughts? It's always good to be here. I've been quite happy being back in Dublin. It's a great place. Like the community here. I'm back next month, I think. I just got asked yesterday.
Nice one.
So 15th, I'm doing some more workshops at Hard Yoga Dundrum. So if you'd like to come join, please do.
Nice.
It'd be good to see you there.
Mate, I had all these notes here, but that was fantastic. Right. Check out Doug.
Check him out right now. Here you go. Like what you see.
So, mate, that was brilliant. Let's go to the airport.
All right, great. Can we have a laugh track to finish it?
Oh yeah.
Anyway, good times, guys. Thanks so much.
Well,
I would do that for days.
I think there's an applause. No, it's crickets.
That was crickets. You found crickets.
Yeah. No.
Oh, that's a good one too. Right, this needs to come into play far more.
All right, sorry about this, you listening. What am I looking for again?
Applause. It must be that one. It's the only one you not hit. Amazing. No applause. Maybe that one.
All right, I can't do this. Yeah. This must be awful to listen to.
This is like going through all the filters on Snapchat, but the auditory version.
Or you know when someone is like changing their ringtone, they're like, just pick a bloody ringtone.
On a train too, like, are you a Spanish couple, by the way, on the way here? We're watching like their favorite Spanish program, the family in the row, on the iPad, no earphones. Yeah. I was like, you could see other people on there going,
she was like, "Get?"
Yeah, everyone going like, "Are you? You can't be serious. This can't be okay where you're from either."
It's a family though. What can you do?
You can't. I mean, I didn't. I laughed a lot, but I did that look to let people know I was also appalled.
Yeah, you did the look.
I'm with you guys. I'm not going to say anything, but I will be appalled.
Yeah, great, mate. Pleasure.
Yeah, good times. Next time, see you then.
See you then.